Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Howdy folks, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Robert Duell.
And I got Jaime and Fuego here with a special Patreon request, and that is from Heather
Brightly.
Heather Brightly,
Yes.
yes. Just followed me on Twitter recently. You are a badass lady, and thank you so very much for the support. Greatly appreciated. This is a film that she chose from 1981 called Bloody Birthday. And dude, I must admit, I'm shocked a woman was the one who requested this film, was because with the amount of TNA in this movie and some of the very young silliness, I was really thinking that this was one that a boy in the 80s watched, in his adolescence and just looked back at fondly. So I don't know, maybe Heather just identified with that evil little blonde girl who's like the mass leader of these two other boys, that they were all basically born on the same day many years before in the 70s, and it was a
solar eclipse.
Solar eclipse, okay.
Which
so,
basically got rid of emotions.
yeah. Well, and it's made them, murderous and mischievous and all of the other stuff. So I guess that's really, from what I recall, the only explanation we get as to why these kids are trying to kill people.
That literally is in everything. But it's a prime example on why I'm not having children.
Man, yeah. Trim those Nazis or whatever. But overall impressions, Heather, I must admit this was not my favorite. It's funny though, because I came across this on Shudder TV a number of months before I actually sat down and watched it. It was on Tubi. It was on some sort of streaming service I found it on. But nonetheless, yeah, I had seen the back 30 minutes of it, and I was like, why is this kid going around with a big dirty hairy gun shooting people with one hand and somehow able to do this? I was just mind blown. I'm like, what are these little kids doing? This is very of the early 80s, which, I mean, in those first couple of years of the 80s, it's almost a remnant of the late 70s cinema in a lot of ways, and so that's totally the vibe that I got from this American film. But, I mean, aside from some nice, appendages on display here and there, but the acting was really silly, although that kid with the glasses, I must admit, him and the blondie, their little third sidekick, he didn't really even have much to do or say. He was just kind of their little droogie of sorts. But those other two kids were adequately creepy, even if, I mean, it's not really a very gory movie either. There's not crazy kills or anything. It's just going around a couple shootings and things like that. So I was not a fan of this, if I'm going to be completely candid. But what did you think, man?
Honestly, I had a little bit more fun than what Fuego did. Again, it was my biggest thing is I was just so pissed and irritated the entire time at these children and just the crappy police work. All right, that's my okay. That was probably one of my biggest issues, is the police work in this.
It's awful.
Terribly written scenarios and everything with your characters. They honestly, this should have been wrapped up within 30 minutes.
Wrap it up, wrap it up.
Yeah, and no, honestly, I would say at least just watch it just for the nostalgia aspect of basically a lost 80s slasher film.
It has that in spades, and it's got the Children of the Corn vibe a little bit, which I think actually was adapted after this. So, I mean, I think it was 82, 83, something like that. Yeah, so it was after this as far as creepy kid films.
Yeah, and what you were saying earlier, you can kind of see the back remnants of the late 70s slasher stuff. It was definitely, you could see they were trying to gain their footing in that early decade of the era.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what they can do with the kids without really pushing too much. But if you look back at the 80s, they did push a lot of the envelopes on a lot of those, even the B movies. And some of those were the best.
Yeah, and this was an R-rated film too.
Yeah.
So I feel like they could have pushed the gore more, but they really just pushed it with the nudity.
I feel it was budget that they were working with, so a lot of it they had to go more on the psychological stuff.
Yeah,
you had to imagine
poisoning cakes and things like that.
Yeah. But and that one scene, for a fact that was the
with
one
the icing where the girl is starting, the older sister is starting to discover.
And that was actually kind of a clever scene. I'll give that. That was nicely written, because it definitely set up for the ending, and just with the shenanigans, I would just say.
Yeah, without really going.
Yeah, because that ending, honestly, it was a little nerve wracking to a degree because I got into the characters. I liked the acting of this movie and everything.
And we do have a final girl.
Yeah, we do have a final girl and everything in this. But basically, before I get too wrapped up into this and everything, overall thoughts, I did like this. I'd recommend this to other people to watch. Sorry, Fuego, you didn't really like this, buddy.
Hey, art is subjective, as I constantly contend here on the horror
Exactly.
show, and so it is what it is in that regard, which is fine. But
Yep.
I mean, story really. Do you know that these are like corrupt little shit kids? Even in just kind of a nasty way of the girl who's their little ringleader. She's got a little peephole in her closet, and she charges other boys to look in at her older sister changing. And yet the older sister is just very nonchalant, nude, dancing around.
That was
being silly. The nudity is pretty gratuitous in this movie.
And you know for a fact, like when that movie was like rented, that was the most pause and toss scene.
Yeah.
Anytime I guarantee anyone went back and watched that film,
and there's
it was
a
all
scene
grainy.
in a van later.
Oh, yeah.
The love scene in the van, and then there's another one in a graveyard, and so there's like nudity throughout this movie, very deliberately written in there.
But I think the dance scene though with the sister is the most one.
It's excessive.
It's excessive, and it's the one
because
that
it's her by herself.
everyone's gonna always remember. And apparently, from what I read, that's the scene that everyone has always remembered her from on any other movie she's done. Yeah,
this is one that would have been late night in rotation on like Skinamax in the 80s and maybe
Yeah.
even Showtime or HBO. So that's where I was like, man, this has to be one of our like male or I don't know.
You got the return button set to like the other like kids channel and everything for when the parents come in. It's like, oh god, no, I'm watching this.
Exactly. Or they're like, yep, I have it recording and I'm just gonna turn off the television and just record on that channel.
Exactly.
Because you didn't even need to have the TV on back in the day to record that
know
sort
what
of
we're
stuff.
talking about.
The struggle was real, man. I'm telling you. But so it goes from just like little mischievous stuff like that to just it's like upping the ante. And there's a kid who kind of knows a little bit what they're up to, or at least suspects, and it's the younger brother of the girl, of our main girl. And so these kids actually lock him in a freezer in the junkyard at one particular point, and that's where he's like, okay, these kids are as bad as I suspected them to be. And there's even scenes where he's up in the treehouse with the girl, and she's about to push him off, and like he turns around and looks at her last minute, and she isn't able to. So
that scene, I'm not gonna lie, like that scene, I wasn't sure what was gonna happen. Because that could have gone either way.
Yeah, because at that point you know the hero is going to be the older sister. It's pretty evident by that point halfway through the movie. And so, I guess maybe I'm hating on it too much because of the fact that I just wanted more gore and it was just so boob-centric and all this other stuff. It's not absolutely terrible. I just really... I don't know. The story the story didn't explain enough for me.
No,
I wanted
really
to know more about why these kids were murderous,
and
as opposed to they're just murderous.
We're not really going to go into it because that's really
we can't spoil it.
Yeah, because it's literally the entire point of it and everything of why they're acting like this. But yeah, it definitely could have had more explanation and
Too
everything.
simple in that regard.
This one actually I feel like would make for a good remake for nowadays.
I agree. Yeah,
just because
actually
of how,
make it gross with the kills.
Exactly. Give more plot details and everything and backstory of why these kids the way they are and everything and why the three of them were born on the same day.
Or maybe even make a sequel, in the fact that the same thing happens again.
It opens up.
And then it opens back up, then kids being even more murderous in a modern day and age in comparison, as opposed to going around with the dirty hairy gun. So
So real quick, let's jump into acting real quick.
Yeah.
So acting, honestly, I thought everyone did really good.
The kids are adequately creepy.
Yeah, the kids especially.
Two of the three, especially.
Yeah, 2 of the 3 and everything. The little redhead kid and everything. He was just kind of a side
kind of there.
Yeah. But no, like our 2 main villain kids, like they were genuinely creepy, and I hated them through the entire movie.
Same.
Like I wanted them to die a horrible death.
Yeah, especially the whole birthday scene, because they're all having a joint birthday together because they all being born on the same day. And so there's this cake bit that we alluded to earlier, and where this kid is trying to put, I think it was like rat poison or something, into the icing and trying to ice the cake to kill a bunch of the other people at the party. And he's discovered, and he's like trying to hide around his back what he actually has. And he's got the evil, sweet little smile going on. What are you talking about? Everything, what?
He's never told a lie in his life.
Yeah, his uncle or grandfather, or whoever it is just like, why are you accusing that boy or something? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was definitely one thing I do want to talk about is the junkyard scene and when the chase. Like that was generally nerve-wracking.
Oh, where one of them has the gas pedals and the other one is steering and everything. Yeah,
that was actually generally kind of nerve-wracking because again, it was early enough in the movie you weren't really know where it was gonna go.
True.
Like,
yeah, we hadn't quite established how important that kid was gonna be.
Exactly.
Yeah, and what I also liked the death of the teacher earlier in the film. Actually, I thought that was relatively effective. Yeah, and then we've got a third act without spoiling that does actually bring a lot of stuff to light, and it's like, yeah, the jig is up. What's gonna happen? You know, will the children prevail? Will they be taken in? Will they die? We're not gonna say otherwise, but I was kind of satisfied. Yeah, I was kind of satisfied, and I did like the little kind of teasery ending of potentially more stuff to be told.
Piss me off, man.
Yeah, so maybe a certain character grows up and has kids herself, and we can actually go into that sort of like remake, like a rebequel, as Cecil I think coined it at one particular point, where
Bloody Anniversary.
That could be it, man. I mean, where it's a sequel, but it also reboots the you know sort of storytelling in this particular regard. It's decently shot. I mean, it's competent enough.
Yeah, it holds well enough and everything, especially for being an '80s B movie. Because I would consider this still a B movie. I wouldn't say the budget was high.
It's definitely a B movie. I'm not sure if it actually. I mean, this was even before like VHS and Betamax were really that prominent, because this was 1981. So I don't even know if this would have had. I don't even know if this would have had an immediate home release. It probably had a short theatrical run.
I can see
that was about the extent of it, and then it was dumped on like pay cable, like I was saying. So.
Yeah, because I know I was reading at one point they're saying basically this was kind of a lost film for a while.
No, that's why I was shocked to see it on Shudder TV when I turned on Shudder one day. It was like in the span of a couple days, I saw this and then Slumber Party Massacre 2. Were both on the live Shudder, because when you boot up Shudder, it's like turning on a TV channel, and then you can segue over to all of the stuff that is on demand on the service. And I love Shudder. We're not sponsored by them, but we would gladly be sponsored by.
I was shuttered by Shudder.
Shuttered by the Shudder. Yeah, $4 a month, man. Come on, there's so much cool shit on there. Yeah. But this is one I just randomly caught on there, along with a few other things, and so. Yeah, man. I mean, as far as score,
like it held enough and everything. It definitely helped to propel the scenes, especially on those anxiety-filled scenes. I'll just leave it at that and everything.
Where you're like, will this character get killed or not?
But it was 80s staple of the score, really.
Yeah.
But it held, like I said, it held its own. It wasn't anything really out there, but it wasn't anything that really super forgettable.
Yeah, definitely I mean, I guess I'm glad I watched it. Definitely one of those lost films of that particular very early 80s era, being 1981. Everybody, this was still very early into just before things really blew up with slashers in the 1980s. So yeah, it kind of a little before its time, perhaps. Even if Halloween and Texas Chainsaw and some other things came before, this was before the genre had like exploded as it would as the decade went on.
Exactly.
So coolness, man.
So, basically. So I think that about does it for the review of Bloody Birthday. Thank you again, Heather Briley.
Yeah, shout out to Heather.
Oh yeah. So basically, don't forget, hit the like and subscribe button down below if you want to become a patron. Links down in the description box.
Tell us what to do.
Yeah, we got different tiers and everything for different things of the month. So yeah, I've been Robert Duell.
Gracias, I've been Jaime and Fuego. And until next time, Fright fans, remember, stay scared.